Say what? Well, it seems that Onika and Bel Khalees are at it again.
Again?
Uh-huh. Again. Well, this back and forth on Twitter seems to come just after Cardi B has received an RIAA platinum certification for her newest project, Am I the Drama, which I think I'll leave that for another episode. But as it pertains to this situation, this had the usual ingredients, a whole lot of petty, and a lot of low blows. But anyhow, that wasn't really the main thing that I looked at in all of this. Because I mean, I like both ladies, I like both women. I like what they bring to the game. Nicki is a powerhouse, she's a dynamo. Cardi B comes with a raw, very relatable element to her style that, it seems to resonate with a lot of people in different facets of life. But anyway, now this is what was brought to my attention and what I found kind of interesting. In that tweet, Cardi B brings up the fact that Nicki Minaj's peers aren't necessarily her. Her peers would be, and she brought up the names of Rihanna, Taylor Swift, Drake, which I think, people mocked her for it because she said, she was in high school when Nicki came out, and she feels like, she's not basically on Nicki's level in that sense, if you're talking numbers. And I think that's a conversation that could be had, although people were like in the comments saying, well, those are pop stars and so on and so forth, so they're not her peers. And I think arguments can be made on both sides, but it's an interesting point of view in the sense that I kind of get, although Cardi's missing the fact that, okay, one thing at a time. So I get where Cardi's coming from as far as the numbers go, because Nicki's not been competing with anybody who would be just in the hip hop space for a long time, if ever, because her first album reached pop status, and she wasn't necessarily just a rapper. She was a pop star because she was singing, she was doing all of that stuff. It wasn't just, and I don't mean just like crooning, she was like singing on her tracks, really singing. So I don't know, she did reach a pop a pop type of status. So, and her numbers were like along the lines of a Rihanna, Taylor Swift. She was in those realms, those spaces, and able to go on world tours. Has Cardi gotten to go on a world tour? Has she ever hit the numbers that Nicki has ever hit? Ever? I don't think so. So it's an argument that could be had deservingly and respectfully. Now here's where I think Cardi tends to like forget that in regard to her being Nicki Minaj's contemporary, although she didn't come out in the same time frame or doesn't have the same longevity in the game, and she hasn't hit those milestones that Nicki has hit per se, she forgets that at least in the rap and hip hop category, there's only two other major artists, that female artists, that have surpassed like 100,000 in the first week of their album sales, and that I can think of, and at least just checking, checking basic information out there, basic data. The two that I can think of is Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. Of course, Nicki has had problems with both. But the thing is Cardi forgets that in the sense of rap and hip hop, she's the contemporary for Nicki, because Nicki kind of made it a lonely island for herself. I feel. I'm just saying, she's not the most approachable. Doesn't seem to be. As far as embracing other female artists and taking them under her wing, and it doesn't seem to be any of that. So Cardi is the only other one other than Megan, and again, Nicki has had problems with both. So, but Cardi tends to forget that, and you are a rapper. You know what I'm saying? So it's fair to challenge you, but I get it about the numbers. As far as just the numbers alone, yeah, that's a fair argument, like I said before. But it's fair arguments on both sides, and I think as long as it's friendly competition musically, it's all good. But these ladies were actually saying things that I'm just like, what are y'all beefing for again?